Welcome to Facing Inward, where patient experiences become shared wisdom. This podcast is a space for candid conversations with patients, caregivers, and healthcare professionals who believe that every story holds the power to heal, educate, and inspire change. Whether you're navigating your own health journey or seeking to better understand the human side of healthcare, you belong here. And now your host, Melissa Carter.
Parenting always comes with unknowns, but for today's guest, those unknowns run even deeper. As the father of two children with special needs, he navigates daily life without a clear diagnosis to explain their challenges. That uncertainty can be overwhelming, yet it has also given him a unique perspective on patience, resilience, and unconditional love. His story is not about having all the answers, but about showing up fully for his children in the face of unanswered questions. I'm pleased to welcome the Senior Development Officer at Children's Healthcare of Atlanta Foundation, Patrick Powell, to share his journey with us. Patrick and I we met in Atlanta, but I knew you as the development officer at the University of Tennessee, and there's a leadership scholarship in my name thanks to you. So
Yes.
thank you for doing
Yes,
that.
of course. Of course.
But I remember that you left University of Tennessee and then you moved to Atlanta. And I was like, oh, that's cool. But I know that there was a specific reason that you had to make that change. So if you don't mind explaining why you made the move and how that's been going.
A couple of different things. One, you mentioned our original connection through the University of Tennessee. I think I had been at Tennessee for just shy of about 5 years. I was looking for some growth opportunity. But the great thing about Tennessee and also the curse is that people love Tennessee so much that, people don't leave.
Right.
So,
Right.
as you're growing your career and gaining knowledge and you're looking for those development opportunities, it's like I've got to figure out how I can do this a different way. And so I didn't want to leave the university, but I knew there was a gentleman named Sam Grady who is currently actually over at Emory. Great guy, did tremendous work. Former athlete, track star, football player at the University of Tennessee, former NFL star, just a great guy. Was working as a regional development officer based out of Atlanta. And I told Sam one day, I said, listen, I said, keep the seat warm for me. I said, because one, my wife graduated from Spelman and she was trying to scratch an itch to get back down here, get back to the big city. If you look at Atlanta like a big city. And again, I was looking for professional advancement. So I knew one way to do that was one, to get my MBA from Tennessee. And that would help me be more eligible for a role, likely Sam's role if he were to vacate it. And everything just happened seamlessly. He decided he was going to move on right about the time I was midway through my MBA program. I interviewed for the role, got the role, and we all came to Atlanta. Other part of this, which I didn't mention, I have two younger medically fragile children, a now 15-year-old who was probably about 8 at the time or 7, and we needed access to better health care. Tennessee does a lot of things well, but when it comes to pediatrics and just the kind of care you can get in Atlanta at Children's is unrivaled in that way. So when you combine all those things, here we are, November 2016, we moved here, stayed with Tennessee for about a year and a half, 2 years, and then my career took me elsewhere, finally landing me here.
Well, and I remember in that conversation about your move to my neighborhood is the fact that you were blessed with the fact that you had great hospitals and doctors here in Atlanta for your children. So I was going to make a guess because I know you have three
Yeah,
daughters and I was going to guess their ages. So I had 15 written down for your oldest. I have
good
13
guess.
and 13 and 10 for the other two, or am I
Oh,
wrong?
so close, so close. And you know what? In any other circumstance, that would be correct. We had the 13-year-old and 11-year-old pretty close together. So we didn't waste any time there.
Right,
So
right.
10 would be what you would expect, but she's 11. Her name is Nico,
My son's going to turn 11 here soon. So it's just,
which is just crazy.
it's and he's almost as tall as me, and that's not
Oh,
okay,
wow.
and I told him he's gotta stop and whatever. But like you mentioned, and that's the reason for our conversation today, is I wanted to get the perspective of a parent who has medically fragile children, and so if you don't mind sharing what is going on with your daughters and
Yeah.
what that daily life is like.
Yeah, that's a large question. I'll start with the first half of your question. The simple answer is we're not quite sure.
Hmm.
We had Remy when we were living in Knoxville. We went to East Tennessee Children's, if I'm saying that correctly. We had some genetic testing done, and we thought it was a very rare condition. And I don't even recall the name of the condition, but the way the condition affects the body is it's very much like cerebral palsy, where she was non-ambulatory, and so anything related to feeding, anything related to walking or talking, just control of your body and your neurology was just kind of out of whack. But we couldn't really track it down. And once we got that determination, we felt like, okay, we don't necessarily know how to handle this very rare condition because at the time she was one of 9 diagnosed cases in the world.
Wow.
So you get that news and you're like, what am I, what are we supposed to do with this? So I think we did like a lot of parents do, and especially moms who shout out to every mom out there because moms are just undaunted. When you are experiencing something like this, moms have this extra gear. I'll call it the superwoman gear.
Right.
It defies everything normal, anything rational, where you all are just so determined to figure out, okay, now that we have this information, not necessarily how do we fix it, but how do we figure out everything that we can do for this child and get this child all the care in the world within our reach so that they can have a happy, somewhat normal life. And that's what my wife did. And that's what she continues to do till this day, so many years later. And then dad figures out, okay, well, how do I fix this? How
Right.
do I take care of mom and make sure she's okay? Because, we don't manage that situation quite the same. There's no blueprint. I'm sure there's multiple books that have been written on families that are not neurotypical and how to kind of manage your family and what to look out for and what resources. I'm sure somebody's written a book or two on that,
Hmm.
but it's just like with anything new, just like becoming a parent. You've seen people parent, you've been a child. No one can prepare you for the unique needs of your children,
Yeah.
especially depending on, when you became a parent. And so that can wreak havoc on you as a married couple or as a unmarried couple who has children that are not neurotypical or neurodivergent. And so in addition to the many many challenges that the kids face in school and try to make sure that they're getting the proper education and being treated fairly, you're managing your relationship, and that takes on a completely different tone when you can't go out for date night necessarily, or all of your attention, and I mean all of your attention, is on the kids. You can't send your kid into the room to try to steal 2 hours to sit and talk because it's not as simple as, hey, Remy, go watch this movie while
Right.
mom and dad talk, or eat lunch or breakfast or whatever it is that you want to do with your respite time. And so that added a whole nother element, and it's going to do one of two things. And unfortunately, when I look at statistics for special needs families, 80% of special needs families, and I don't know if it's higher or lower at this point, 80% of special needs families end up in divorce. And unfortunately, this makes me so sad, it's usually the father that decides to move on.
Mm.
And that absolutely breaks my heart. I could not imagine meeting my wife and trying to have her manage all of the different challenges and not just that, but like removing yourself. Because these kids know, I mean, they may not understand in the traditional way, but they know who you are. They know that you're there, and they know that that they're loved and supported by you as a parent. So I think that gets lost in those decisions.
Before we had kids, my son's other mother and I were having problems independent of trying to have him. And
Yeah,
there was one day that she said to me, she said, "Look, if we don't make it, do you still want to have a child with me?" There was no brainer. I said, "Absolutely." Because
yeah.
regardless of our problems, as a human being, as a person, I really loved and admired her and still do. And I asked the same thing and she said, "Absolutely." And so we ended up not making it. So we are not together anymore, but we are co parenting our son who he's not a fragile child. And we co parent him like pros. But we made the conscious decision because we were older when we had our child, but we just said, "Look, am I the person? Am I the kind of person that you want to partner with in these decisions? And so
Yeah.
we've had plenty of headbutting when it comes to different opinions on things with him, but we always come to this is a family, a partner decision. So that's with a child that doesn't have special needs. I think to your point, we joke about be careful who you have kids with. And this is one
Yeah.
of the reasons is because like having kids may sound romantic. You may have parents that are pressuring you to have children. I mean, but
Yeah.
like that's a huge responsibility. And there is the possibility that they're going to need or have special needs of some kind. And you, as parents, have to be present in order to make those decisions. Like you said, whether it's tough or not, like it may not be fun, but you got to do it. And,
Yeah.
it's your child. You want to do that for them. I didn't know the statistic was that high. I mean, that's one of the reasons for this podcast, Patrick, is for people
Yeah.
to show a little more patience and love to people like your family instead of being frustrated when you're out and about and taking longer than maybe they want you to.
That is a great point because, you learned very quickly as a parent of neurodivergent kids that this world was not created with them in mind. And it's the small things. And I remember I used to go to the grocery store, and my kids are hypersensitive to any kind of loud, unexpected noises or sounds. And I'll show my Pittsburgh roots here. When somebody would pull out a buggy, or as we know them, a shopping cart here at the grocery store, that one flap that comes out and folds down when you pull out the cart,
Yeah.
that would bang. And I would get so annoyed by the other humans who were just going about their business, who obviously this is not their life, this is not their lived experience. They are not sensitive to this at all. And why would they be? But I would be so annoyed. Like, I've got a special needs kid over here.
Yeah.
Can you keep it down?
Yeah. I think anybody that has experienced anything different than the norm, which is probably a lot of people, but me as a lesbian, it's like
Uh-huh.
I have certainly received the negative end of that. And people who, I mean, to the point of I'm going to hell to, not talking to me, not wanting to shake my
Yeah.
hand. I mean, I've experienced a lot
Right.
of things in my life with that. And my son has even had people say to him, your family's not right. Don't you know that?
Oh.
It doesn't phase him because we have taught him not hate, because hate is a bad word in our house. It's
Uh-huh.
the different people just aren't exposed to things and it makes them afraid.
Yeah.
You're afraid of what you
Yes.
don't know. And so his school is a smaller school and has not had the capacity just yet to be able to educate and take care of a lot of special needs kids. And
Yeah.
I've said that to him. I've said, now you have not been exposed to children who needed extra help in doing things. So I've
Yeah.
educated him on that just to bring up the fact that people are different in this world and that's not a bad thing. You're right. I mean, there's so many people that don't get that education, don't get that experience. And it's like you said, they go on with their lives and sometimes they're rude about people who are different.
Absolutely. I mean, and our world is moving so quickly. You go on Instagram and you see all of these different things depending on your algorithm. But what I'm seeing now, and it's probably because I'm getting ready to turn 50, is I'll see all these Gen X posts about kids drinking from the water hose and all
Right.
these AI generated versions of reality that show my childhood essentially, and what it was like to go out and play and connect with other human beings and ride bikes and come in when the street light came on, and things were a little slower, or at least it felt that way because you had the whole day. Because if you were like me, your mom or dad or grandmother kicked you out and said, "Don't come back."
It wasn't the streetlights, believe it or not, my parents had a pole with a bell on the top,
Oh
and so when
wow.
it was supper time, there's your southern phrase, when it was supper time,
Yes.
she rang the bell, and that so I was
Yes.
on my bike from after school until the bell
Yes.
rang. Our parents didn't wanna have anything to do with us after we got home
Yeah.
from school, and so
Yeah.
similarly, yes, agreed, I'm a
Yeah,
Gen
so
Xer too.
so I say that to say things moved a little slower, and it seemed like we had much, much more time. And I don't know if anybody was any more patient at that point, but things move so fast now, and everything happens so quickly, and people get annoyed at the drop of a hat. You can't sit at a street light for a full second after the light is turned green in Atlanta without somebody laying on their horn. I mean,
Absolutely.
people just have zero tolerance for you interfering with their ability to go about their daily life. And that carries over when you're a family with kids with special needs. I don't care if it's going out to dinner or lunch. It's like, if your kid, kids with special needs tend to make unique sounds. I mean, we know this.
Yeah.
So it's like, we're out at dinner, and, we try to be very intentional, just like we would be on an airplane, like giving folks that aren't as patient or out enjoying their time space to do just that with us, not infringing on their moment or their experience. I think it rarely is that same courtesy shown on the opposite end. And it's
Well,
sad.
I want to jump in on that because somehow our society has made us feel like if I'm on an airplane, that you have to serve me to let me know that, like you said, it's going to be disrupted. Where,
Yeah.
I wish we lived in a society where me as an able bodied person, it's my job to serve those who aren't able bodied. And
Right.
it's a very Spartan way of the healthy or the strong and rule the world, and those who aren't are the ones who have to serve the masters. There's a loneliness that comes with this. And so do you ever
Yes.
feel that as a
Yes.
couple or even as an individual?
Absolutely. I can, I mean, you hit on something that really, it hits close to home. You feel very isolated. And I will tell you, we'll call this the make-a-wish moment, because our kids are not terminally ill. And that was a mistake that we made. We thought when you try to partner with Make-A-Wish that that was one of the conditions that needed to be met, only to find out that it's not that way. If you're dealing with any kind of disability or significant medical need, you can apply to Make-A-Wish. I work with Remy most of the time, one, because of the physical demands. She is 5'3" and she's about 85 pounds. And we've matured past the point where my wife is able to physically move her in a way safely.
She's 13, right? So
She's 13. Yes.
she's the middle child. Yes, yes, yes.
Yes. Nico's a little smaller. She's a little more compact. And so she can be managed still. But Tiffany doesn't have a lot longer left with being able to do that. So I take that on. So Nico is very calm, very chill. You can sit with her at a restaurant, and you probably won't even know she's there. But Remy she's the middle child. And we know what we know about middle children, and she fits the bill. Very hyper, very excited, very vocal. Up until recently, has had some behavioral challenges. She just is go, go, go. For the longest time, for years, we would not go to a restaurant. We would not go to the mall. We would not go to any number of places. And this is my anxiety for the most part that kept us at home or indoors or doing something not in the public. Well, this summer, we were awarded a Make-A-Wish, and we traveled down to Disney. And I will say this with all the love of the world for Disney, I wish everywhere was Disney,
Mm.
because we drove 7.5 hours to Disney. And when I tell you they made every single accommodation humanly possible to make us feel special and welcome, I can't, there's no end to the praise that I could give the folks in Disney. But when we go to the restaurant, when we got in line to meet the princesses, it was, hey, now we're going to treat you like you're the normal neurotypical family, and you get to go first. And we're going to make sure that everybody's kind of catering and gathering around to support you. And I realized during that time, I was like, you know what? We can get out and do more. And why,
Mm.
Tiffany realizes too, why are we isolating ourselves? Why are we putting way more, to your earlier point, why are we allowing those folks that are neurotypical to just have those experiences? We deserve those experiences too. And maybe we have to manage it and plan for it a little differently, but our kids deserve that too. And so you're going to see us out a lot more. We're going to do things more, and we're not going to be confined to this house where we're all feeling very isolated and not a part of society.
I love that that has been the outcome from your Make-A-Wish trip, and I didn't know that Make-A-Wish was making wishes for kids that are not terminal, so that is a
Yes.
great education. And for those who are
Yes.
listening to the podcast, Make-A-Wish is a resource if you would like to apply. And also here locally in the Atlanta area, I worked in morning radio for many years, and Bert Weiss, who is the Bert Show, Bert,
Yes.
he has a yearly trip to Disney called Bert's Big Adventure that you can apply for, and I was on that trip for 10 years with him. I can second what Patrick said. Like, we would take a group of children who were special needs from a different variety of needs down to Disney. It's top notch. Like, they know
Oh,
how to treat those children. So yes, I've seen it firsthand too. And it's just, kudos to them, because there's not a lot of places that can do that.
oh, they just treated us so well, and it was we've never felt like a normal family, and that completely
Mm.
changed the way that we look at ourselves and our kind of our place in the world. And so, to your point, it can be very isolating. And listen, now I will tell you, both of my younger kids have gone through Marcus Autism to participate in various programs. Nobody does it better than Marcus. The care and the staffing there, and those folks that work at Marcus are absolutely amazing. But it's like there are different levels, right?
It's a spectrum, right? I mean,
Oh
it's a
yeah,
true
absolutely.
spectrum. Yeah, yeah,
It
yeah.
really is. And there are kids with very significant needs across the, very high level needs. And then you've got other families who are managing needs that, yes, they're on the spectrum, but their challenges are a little bit different.
Mhm.
And the usually the deciding factor is kind of behavioral in nature. And so I don't want to overlook some of my fellow parents who are managing children who have more extreme needs, and kind of be judgmental in any way as far as what it takes for them to get out of the house. I can only speak on our unique experience, and the fact that even in filling that isolation, there's more that we can do, and there's more that we're capable of. And so I want to encourage that.
Now, let me just clarify. You had mentioned that both Remy and Nico are medically fragile. And so does
Yes.
Nico have the same condition that Remy does?
Well, I'm glad that you asked, because we got her tested, and we DNA tested, and the results came back negative across the board. There's nothing genetic that has impacted her. What we realize is that, well, maybe there's nothing genetic. Maybe Remy was misdiagnosed, because their symptoms are very similar in nature. And if you looked at them physically, they don't really present in a way that you would say, okay, they're dealing with something or managing something. You can only tell that when they move,
Mhm.
or when they have these moments where they're trying to speak and different sounds are coming out, or they're making different expressions. Then okay, they're managing something. But we don't know what that something is.
Explain how, as parents, that has been, because I know that that has to be frustrating, because as human beings, like you mentioned earlier, we want to find out what the problem is and we fix it. And then if you
Yes.
never know what the problem is that something you've just had to let go, or is that something that you just kick the can down the road until better testing comes along?
The internal battle, and I know my wife and I probably deal with this daily. When you look at your kids, initially you want to fix them, right?
Mhm.
First thing, they're not broken. And we had to arrive at that determination after a lot of thought. Secondly, you see other kids. It doesn't matter if you're driving in traffic and you see kids get dropped off at the bus stop, or you see kids playing, or I'm a girl dad. You see stories about young ladies getting married. You're constantly reminded that this may not be in the cards for your kids. And so, as difficult as that is, that can't be the aspiration. The aspiration has to be, or your goal has to be, how do I give them access to resources that allow them to progress, allow them to, if they can walk, to jog, if they can crawl, to stand, if they can't crawl but can sit, to crawl. I mean, all of these small markers, right? That help them ultimately have a better quality of life, and help them to progress towards whatever their normal is going to be. That is the goal. And I think looking at it in any other way is going to disappoint you, and going to cause you much unneeded suffering. You got to meet them where they're at and look at their life and what it could be, not what it isn't, or what it won't ever be.
And I like how you put the fact that nothing is wrong with your children. Nothing is wrong with your children. Sometimes we mistake average or normal. Normal
Yeah.
just means the majority, just means average, does not mean how
Yes.
it's not how it's supposed to be. I don't know how we got to this point where, again, strength and power are superior to something that is strong and powerful in different ways, right? So I'm
Yes.
thinking of, body wise, the that we've gotten into a bad habit of, men are better than women because they're stronger. And somehow this
Yeah.
mentality, I don't know if it makes us feel safe or not, but I always think it's based in fear. Anything that is
Yes.
not based in love is based in fear. Those are the two emotions, in
Yes.
my opinion, of the world. It's hard in this society to steer away from what the norm and the perfect norm is supposed to be. But I'm hoping it will bring forth a better world. To me, I feel like everything has to lead to something better. And I hope
Right.
that's the case so that we're compassionate and loving, and that families like yours can feel more encouraged and more encouraged to go out, like you said, instead of Make a Wish having to inspire you to be like, hey, we can go out and we can do things and we can
Yeah.
still, go outside the house, for people in your community to inspire you to be able to do that. Are you a patient who has used creative outlets like writing or art or music to process your journey? Share your art with us. facinginwardpodcast@gmail.com. Now, I would be remiss if I didn't bring up your oldest daughter. So,
Yes.
I've heard that sometimes this can be a challenging thing for a
Yes.
child who does not require the same needs as their siblings, but obviously, when there's special needs, the family tends to go in that direction. So, tell us about Bella and how she's handling all this.
Yeah. It all depends because she's the oldest out of the three, which I think is a positive based on our dynamic. One, physically, there's things that she can do where we can offset, kind of just some of the tasks on a daily basis that families incur, whether it's dishes or whether it's helping us with laundry or whether it's, hey, can you sit with the girls while mom or dad goes to do X, Y, and Z? So that's a blessing. Also, I think, and I know this happens unfortunately in some families, sometimes if a family, their first child has special needs, they will stop there. While it's wonderful for that child because all the attention will be on them, I think for those that want to have larger families, that can block those families from deciding to expand or to have more children. And so her being the oldest has been a blessing, but also she experiences that same isolation and that same loneliness because siblings do what siblings do. I'm an only child, so I don't know what this is like, but I've been around friends and family members who have. My wife has a sister, and I see that dynamic and what that does. Even if you antagonize the heck out of each other, there's still a love and an affection and a certain level of engagement that you have with your siblings.
Mhm.
So to have two younger siblings and not to be able to communicate in a traditional way, to have that sibling rivalry, it ultimately puts her in a situation where her lived experience is a lot like an only child. And so I know that has affected her. The positive of this is that she's not alone in this. She has my wife's sister. She has a daughter who's 11, and she's kind of like the fourth sister of our family. And she, being younger than Bella, Bella's able to kind of be a big sister to her as well. And so that kind of scratches that sibling itch, if you will.
Mhm.
So that exists. But also it's well documented that, siblings who have special needs, sisters or brothers, they also go through this with you. And a lot of times there are support groups for kids that have that experience. And so she's doing great. She's super smart. She always has been. Unfortunately, and this goes back to kind of the world we're living in and how fast we're moving about. She's dealing with the same things that a lot of young, impressionable girls are dealing with, and that's kind of the social pressures and the social media and the impact of thousands of marketing messages telling all these young women that they have to look like this and
Right.
and be this tall and be this fit. But she's managing those challenges in addition to these neurotypical challenges on her.
So when I would do Bird Speak Adventure, we would take the whole families, and there were some siblings that you saw handle the situation where it was an opportunity for them to express love in a different way,
Yeah.
to be really protective and enjoy the company of their siblings. And then there were others that, it was difficult because there is an attention that they may not get as consistently as some of their peers. And I also understand, for those who are listening, that if it's an able-bodied child that's younger than the special needs child, sometimes that brings with it more difficulty than when it's the older child, which I find interesting. So,
Yeah.
but I don't have a source on that, which that's another thing. Diversity to me does not just mean race or gender or
Uh-huh.
sexuality
Yeah.
or gender identity. It also means if you're able-bodied or not, if you're in a family that of someone who is medically fragile,
Yeah.
and I don't hear that a lot when you talk about diversity.
You know, you hit on a great point, and I want to make sure I say this because the one thing, and I'll talk to the dads first, for all the fathers out there that have a lived experience like what we have. The oldest child is, and I'll tell you what we've done with Bella. We've done special things for her because, and when I say special things, and it all depends on what you have the ability to do. It doesn't have to be a trip to Europe like my wife and Bella experienced last year to attend a friend's wedding, but it could be going out to a ball game. It could be going to the mall, the movies. It could be going out to go get ice cream together. But you have to make sure that child, oldest or not, continues to feel special and seen and recognized for the unique person that they are. Because if you don't do that, that's the quickest way to put that child in a situation where they continue to feel isolated and not cared about or appreciated or just as valued as the other child or children that have significant needs. And this also, I want to extend this to the grandparents. If you are fortunate enough that the grandparents are still around, and we are, my mom is still around, and my wife's mom and dad are still around. When you have an opportunity to love on that sibling, do so, but also support those kids with challenges. I will tell you, before I ever became a parent, and I would see a special needs child or a child that was medically fragile, before I ever got married, I didn't know how to react. Like you said, there's love and there's fear.
Right.
I didn't experience fear like I was afraid of the child. I had a fear that I didn't know how to interact.
Right.
Like what do I do? Because this is new territory to me. This is a mom struggling with a child that obviously needs, like, how do I not offend her by offering? Is it my place to like, how do I go about this? And so what most people do is they don't do anything. They kind of just either keep walking or never stop in the first place. They look and keep moving. But I think grandparents deal with this as well as siblings of the parents. They deal with this as well. Like, they don't know how to interact with the children. So parents of the children, we have the responsibility to say, hey, listen, love on her, hug him. He or she likes to play with these toys or these games. They like you to read to them. Grandma and grandpa, this is how you can engage and connect. It's not enough just to sit there on your phone and be in the presence of the children. Read to them. I
Yeah.
want to encourage that. I want to make sure that that is noted because that is a big challenge.
I would go to Dragon Con a lot in
Yeah.
Atlanta. Don't laugh at me, but yes, I was
No, I
a
think it's awesome.
I went to my brother and I went 20 years straight until we were like, it's too big and we're too old. But
Uh huh.
I remember some of my first years there. There was a guy that came that was severely disabled.
Yes.
And he was in an electric wheelchair, which he was able to navigate on his own, but he couldn't even sit up straight. It's hard to describe. It's almost like it was a specialized wheelchair where he had to almost like lay down with his head a little
Yes.
elevated so he could see.
Yes.
His body was just completely immobile, and his speaking ability was very challenged.
Uh huh.
And Dragon Con and the people who were attendees and the panelists at Dragon Con, when I'd be in the same panel with him and he'd ask questions, because he was always on the front row and he was always asking questions.
Yeah.
And you could feel the room tense up when he started to speak because nobody could understand what he was
Yes.
saying. And I was so charmed by the staff at Dragon Con and by the celebrities that were on the panels, because never once did I see anyone treat him with disrespect, I feel like they may have been alerted prior to, because I thought, not one of these people is hesitant, not having a
Yeah.
poker face with it. And I became more relaxed with him. Like, I stopped being the one going, oh, how is this going to be handled? It was
Yeah.
more of, okay. And I tried to learn the cadence. And then I will say, with my son's other mother, one of the things that charmed me about her when we started dating was the fact that she had an uncle that had cerebral palsy and
Uh-huh.
struggled to speak. But the more I was with her and him, she understood him completely because she grew up with him. And so she knew exactly
Yes.
what he was saying, right? And so
Yes.
it's like, no, I have to learn this language. And that's usually how I interact. If I say, this is on me, this is not on you, I need to learn. So teach me again,
Yes.
or repeat yourself,
Yeah.
or I
Yeah.
apologize. Exposure equates to comfort. It's a matter of just learning a new language. That's how the best way I can describe it. Is that fair to say for people's, when it comes to not only movement, but like you said, the noises that may come out, you're just learning a new way to communicate, and there's
Yeah.
nothing wrong with that.
Yeah. Yeah. And the only way, like you said, to learn is to kind of dive in and be okay with that discomfort. I think first you have to admit, this is uncomfortable for me, not because you don't care or compassionate or don't have love for the person that's going through what they're going through or managing their everyday. Just getting over that and saying, okay, how can I help? How can I be of assistance in this moment? How can I find a way to make a connection here? I mean, it's not like anything else in your life where you're like, where do I fit here? How do I plug in? And just kind of normalizing it in your head. Just like anything, you see somebody struggling, you offer to help. It's the same way when there's something that you're exposed to where there's somebody that's neurodivergent or requires a different level of engagement. I'm kind of fiercely independent when it comes to the girls. And I don't say that as a positive because I could stand to get more help, like accept more help.
Yeah. Well, it makes me
But
wonder too sometimes in this life if some of these things that come in our path are meant for us to do just that, right? So believe it or not, for those who listen to me in morning radio, I tend to be a private person. I usually
yeah,
keep to myself. I'm not this exciting. Like, I'm usually a pretty boring person. But I
yeah,
remember when I got sick, it was like, okay, well, maybe I'm supposed to be asking for help. Maybe I'm supposed to be, and again, who knows
yeah,
how this universe works, but that's how my mind and spirituality goes, is, well, all right, maybe this is for a reason. Like you mentioned, being fiercely independent, maybe it helps you and teaches you how to ask for help or accept help.
yeah,
And I think the
yes,
challenge for our listeners is to expand your mind and expand your heart to be just a better person when it comes to people with special needs. When I was in, and we're going to get to our final question here in a second, but Patrick, when I was in school, the special needs hallway was separate from everybody else. And I remember
uh-huh,
even when I went to school thinking, well, that's awful, because
yeah,
I'm sure that it serves a purpose for
yes,
them to be able to have the space and the time and the pace and everything. But I felt it was a disservice to other students who never got to interact with special needs kids.
yes,
So
yes.
I don't know if that's any better now, but I just remember as a student thinking I was missing out on that opportunity.
We'll have to have that conversation offline, but yes,
Yes, I get it.
there's
I
some
get it.
challenges there.
Well, Patrick, I could talk to you all day, but I know that we are all sensitive with time. So thank you for your time. And my final question to you is, what has caregiving revealed to you about the human experience?
Oh man, that is such a wonderful question. And the thing that comes to mind immediately is that there are people care. They really do. More often than not, people genuinely care and they want to be helpful. And if you're willing to accept that help and accept those resources, your family is going to be much better for it. As crazy as this world is right now, there are folks that have a lot of love to give and the capacity to give it. You have to learn how to accept it. It's like when independence goes wrong. I have so many people because I've got a stroller with me all the time, sometimes two. I have the girls sometimes at the same time. And there's been a lot of times where people say, "Can I help you? Can I assist you?" I'm like, "No, I got it. I'm struggling." I'm struggling, but I'm a big, strong man and I can do it myself. I'm special needs super dad. And I really should accept the help. But there are people that are willing to offer it. there's a whole communities out there of folks that are struggling just like you. Their days are just like yours or similar. And, that's a wonderful thing.
Facing Inward is an extension of my book, Facing Inward, available anywhere books are sold. This podcast is a production of Wanging Dude Publishing, all rights reserved. Thanks for listening.